sharing is the truth, nothing more.
Hello everyone, this is Steve with Breaking Truth News. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys exactly what Mr. Jordan Peterson's trying to explain. And if people don't understand what he's trying to show you, what's wrong with our systems, then you really need to reevaluate things that's going on around the world that you believe in. He gets a lot of backlash from the media. He is not the monster that everyone thinks he is. He's not a liberal, he's not a conservative, he's not a libertarian. He's a man with just some common sense that a lot of people shouldn't. He's a very intelligent man. He's got a PhD. He studied at the University of Toronto in psychology. He studies with religious beliefs, ideological beliefs, and he's also studied at the Alberta University. Now, in this video, he tries to explain why our free speech is important. He doesn't word it in that perspective, but he's basically implying that. In our government these days, now, I'm a person of color, and I don't care what the racism is. I don't care if you're black, white, mulatto, Asian, whatever. People should have the right to say what they want, whether it's discrimination or not. It is up to the other person to learn to defend themselves and not the government. We shouldn't have to put systems after system after system to bubble wrap our society. It is getting out of control, and he's simply questioning that, and people try to sway it. It doesn't matter what views you have. It's simple logic. And the way this man gets targeted all the time, and this woman, when she tries to explain it, she plays not stupid, but she knows what the hell he's talking about, and she's just still trying to sway the ideological agendas that they have on the left. And it doesn't matter if you're left or right. It should just be basic common sense. And if it wasn't for Jordan Peterson these days, half the time, I don't know what our society would be doing. They'd probably be going back to stoning each other. Alright, let's get to the video and I'll show you what I mean. Now, this is also in May, and this was May 2017, and we're February 13, 2018, and it's only a matter of time before people realize, example, what happened to Lindsay Shepherd was a perfect example. And that's only the tip of the iceberg on half the stories that are actually going on out there.
Thank you, Senator Ahmedvar.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both of you for being here. I was trying to take notes, but I think I got this right, Mr. Peterson, that you talked about this bill as being an expression of vanguard of ideology. Am I right in thinking?
Well, I was thinking more about the policies.
See the dumb look on her face?
But yes.
Yeah. So I'm trying to square what you, as a part
Bad
of
actor,
are saying, with published documents from the Canadian Psychological Association, the American Psychological Association, the Canadian Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the Canadian Psychiatric Association, and the United Nations Human Rights experts. So these are all, these are not parties of one. They are associated. They are all, I imagine, lots of...
But she won't tell you what they're saying.
The Canadian Psychology Association and the Canadian Psychiatry. So how are we to square what you're saying, which is your opinion, which you are absolutely entitled to, with what everyone is saying, plus the feelings and testimonies of the people who have suffered over 30 years, who've been taking issues to court? These are people who we've listened to. So how are we to square this?
Okay, well, with regards to your second point, if the people that you're listening to aren't randomly selected from a population, then their opinions are worthless from the perspective of testimony, because you don't know if you're dealing with a biased sample. And that's a big problem with the public consultation process that underlied this bill. And you can not appreciate that if you'd like, but it's standard practice in any in any polling institution or any body that's attempting to extract a genuine opinion out of a so-called community of people. And if that isn't followed, then you can't tell if the information that you're receiving is biased. And this, with regards to your first point, what exactly are all those people who aren't thinking the same way as me saying? You said that there's a bunch of them and a bunch of groups, but you never said what they're saying precisely.
Well, I think our chair would rule me out of order if I proceed.
No, you're fine.
To read out what they're all saying. But in general, they say they oppose discrimination and harassment because of gender identity and gender expression. And then there's 3 pages, which I can share with you.
I oppose discrimination against gender identity and gender expression. That's not the point. The point is the specifics of the legislation that surrounds it and the insistence that people will have to use compelled speech. That's what I'm objecting to. I've dealt with all sorts of people in my life, people who don't fit in all sorts of different ways. I'm not a discriminatory person. There's 500 hours of my teaching to my classrooms on tape on YouTube, and nobody's found a smoking pistol. I'm not a discriminatory individual, but I think this legislation is reprehensible, and I do not believe for a moment that it will do what it intends to do. I also don't think that my opinion deviates substantially from the bodies that you're describing, because you haven't provided any evidence that they say anything other than discrimination is a bad thing. And I think that unreasonable discrimination is a bad thing. And it's unreasonable when people are judged for any reason other than the specific competence that they bring to, say, a given position. It's not in anyone's best interest that that occurs. But I don't think that you've demonstrated in the least that the opinions that I'm putting forward exist in opposition to the standard practices, say, of my particular discipline.
Before I go further, he is absolutely 110% correct. 200% correct. Now, I've never in my entire life, and I'm a person of color, had to run to the cops or the government because someone's discriminating me. I've either dealt with it myself or totally ignore them. And I've had it in unbiased ways. I've had people that think they're not racist and ask you questions and don't realize that they're being racist even though they think they're not. And do I get offended? No. You educate the person. You explain to them. And you show people the meanings on why they think that way and why they shouldn't think that way. It's creating dialogue. You don't silence everybody, no matter what the opinions are, whether it's gender, race, religion. You don't silence people like that. And that's why our world's getting out of hand. And these people know that. And he's simply explaining it to them, and she will not pull out any facts.
So,
May I follow? Could you repeat one more time your response to
And here, this is where she's going to try to set him up.
Senators Gold and Pratt, that the Ontario Human Rights Commission has provided what I would say reasonable alternatives to your objection to using pronouns?
well, I think it's been made clear in the presentation so far is that it depends on which part of the Ontario Human Rights Commission's policies you read. And that's a big problem. I mean, that's one of the reasons I criticized this to begin with was because when I went through the policies, I could see that they're absolutely incoherent.
So, for example,
here, let me give you another example. So there's an insistence in the Ontario Human Rights Commission that sexual preference is an immutable phenomenon, which indicates, at least in principle, that it's biologically grounded. But by the same token,
now there's videos all over the YouTube, the internet. You can find this. And there's people hugging trees, having sex with trees, trying to marry trees, people doing things with their cars. And you've probably already seen these on reality television, and you people think this is a joke. And that's what he's explaining, that we're opening Pandora's box. He's not saying it in that term, but we're opening Pandora's box. And once you open Pandora's box, you can't close it back up.
in exactly the same policies, they presume that sexual identity, and gender expression are entirely independent. It's like, sorry guys, you can't have both of those because one's A and one's not A, and you can't put those together. And like, there's endless numbers of places in the policy surrounding Bill C16 that are characterized by that kind of logical incoherency. And I mean, what's it going to do to people who are transgender, who are making the claim that they were, say, born that way at birth, which is a strong claim. That's a biological claim. It indicates that there's a direct causal connection between some biological phenomena and the expression of a particular identity. It's actually the strongest defense that people who have, let's call them non-standard sexual identities or gender identities, have to defend their claims.
And then you would have to rewrite science book. So now, after they shut him down, they're just going to go on the media later, talk some trash about him, make up these random stories. There's going to be protesters and everybody. But what people are not understanding is what the point he's making. He's not saying he's against genders or any of that. What he's saying is people do not have the right, which is a dictatorship, to tell people how to speak. Whether it's a bill or not, you cannot keep creating law after law to protect everybody. You're bandaging the situation. And he's explaining that in more technical terms. But that's what we're doing, people. We keep bandaging everything. We keep trying to fix one problem and then bandaging it with another problem. Now, with all these claims and the biological claims, he's even showing and stating that you would literally have to rewrite biology, science, everything. It goes against everything we were ever taught from the history till now. And that's the problem. Some people are born acting a certain way, but nobody is born the opposite. You have to physically change it unless you can physically prove that. And there are studies on the opposite side. Excuse me. The studies on the opposite side, they'll never actually give you their fact. They're just saying, oh, it's wrong. But why is it wrong? What is wrong with questioning the proof and evidence on the opposite side? And it doesn't matter if you're gay, transgender, or whatever. Even there's other people that are coming out now and noticing the LGBTQ, whatever you want to call it, is sabotaging their work that they've worked for years. It's reversing things. Everything that's happening is becoming reversed. And we're opening Pandora's box. Now, if everybody keeps going on with the ideology, you're going to have men, women, whatever you want to call it, using the same bathrooms as your kids. And this is the principle of explaining to people on how far are we going to go before we realize there's no going back and we're just feeding all kinds of problems. It's a growing trend. There's, like he's saying, there's thousands and millions, billions of possibilities on where these directions can go. And after that, there's going to be another law. But you cannot silence people, whether it's gender, race, religion, whatever the case may be. Everybody has the right to question. And everybody has the right to understand. But people also have the right on both sides equally to address their situation. All right, I'm going to leave that there for you guys to think about. If you have any questions or would like to discuss more, I'll keep posting videos, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.